こんな顔になってるのかないやいやこうこんなあんな
Not bad, but I still prefer the guys from Pop Team Epic's interpretation. This one opened up with surprisingly some follow-up from the last episode. Yeah, you wouldn't normally think that goofier slice-of-life anime would do such, but the thing about this episode is that, to me at least, it's a recap episode done right. Now note, I said recap and not clip show. I mean, there are clips from previous episodes here, but they're only used when necessary. You'll see what I mean. Anyway, before anything else, we also got some slight Kaoru family lore. I guess that ending theme wasn't cutting it. But yeah, apparently Kaoru had never seen her wrestling father outside of his luchador mask for about a decade, and had forgotten what he looked like underneath. Let me guess, he turned into some weirdo in face paint who's seldom used because it is just so out of left field. This was interrupted by our first bit of recapping with the reveal that the prof had been looking into the monsters they had dealt with during this previous arc and how they differed from the usual rogues gallery. And they did this with just a few clips from the previous episode, while everything else was relegated to some nice collages showing the divide between the black-lighted and him-particled monsters. Good stuff that kept things short and concise. And speaking of that previous episode, Travolta, who still had his fro at the end, showed up with his regular hair and...
これ見てくださいませんか?
Sir, please take your nasty dandruff and go home. I mean, okay, obviously it was the him particles, but still, considering that it came out of his hairbrush, there's probably a lot of other waste mixed in there. But whatever, they were going to look into it. At the same time, the actual creator of the stuff had woken up again, having decided to move to a warmer location.
この嫌な胸騒ぎは同じだわ。あの時と同じよ。
Let me guess, you're feeling the presence of the Saiyans? Wanting to figure out what had been going on while he had rested, he recalled his particles. This, of course, included the dandruff-laden ones that the girls had been looking into, so they tried to follow it back to its source. However, him just turned them into a blackbird and they escaped. Then from there, he's probably gonna use that to destroy Shibuya. Seriously, that scene can never catch a break. The particles then provide him with another thankfully short recap of the previous arc, leading to the creation of another monster, this time from some really weird painting of a zombie farmer who passed on just because he was missing one sheep. Poor Yamo never did get over losing Todoroki, and now he's dressing up like him. Meanwhile, Utonium tried to help by looking into the research of his ancestor, Kennai Hiraga, who was based off of the real-life historical figure, Gennai Hiraga. Now, for anyone who's seen the Read or Die OVA or Gintama, that name might sound familiar. But as they're doing with this episode, I think we should just do a quick little summary for analysis' sake. Come on, y'all could use a little history lesson. Gennai was a brilliant polymath during the Edo period in the late 1700s, having been an accomplished physician, painter, author, and rococo artist. While history will likely remember him mostly for being one of the earliest prolific yaoi writers, and his satirical essay about, and I'm not kidding, farting, he was also arguably a bit of an inventor. His greatest claim to fame having been repairing a Dutch-made electrostatic generator called an elekiter and promoting the usage of electricity to Japan, which was still very much new to the country at the time. Now, of course, he didn't actually invent the device, and his research was ultimately never recognized for practical usage, but there's still a bit of a romanticism of a man learning about such new technology for his country. Even more so, considering that this was around the same time that Benjamin Franklin was doing his famous lightning rod experiments. Now, Kennai here apparently wrote a little less about farting, and more about certain black particles that created monsters and how they were created by him. He also did note the creator's actual name, which was... Oh, come on, what's so scary about... In order to counter him, Kennai invented a substance called Kennai, Eagle Much Dude, and sprinkled it all over some familiar-looking girls who didn't exactly give the okay to do so, but whatever, they seemed okay with becoming superheroines, with the pink one even doing a little bit of a rider suppose many years before their creation.
Or who knows, maybe this is right after O's fought alongside the Shogun.
Anyway, yeah, this stuff was apparently the precursor to Chemical Z, even though I'm pretty sure that stuff was originally created by accident when a stray manju got into some Chemical X.
The answer is don't think about it.
My best assumption is that the prof is assuming that they have similar chemical makeup, which is a bit of a stretch, but whatever, Powerpuffs in feudal Japan, or rather, the Ooeda Chaki Musume. Yeah, we'll just stick with calling them the Edo girls. Anyway, they confronted him.
大江戸着席娘参上なんで私参上しか言えないんです
Hey, it's still more syllables than Portola ever got in her team's roll call.
And their fight didn't last long, because even back in the day, him was weak against the cold, and they defeated the Devil Clown with some fun variation on the modern Girlz' attacks. And as if this guy having Frieza's voice didn't make it feel enough like Dragon Ball, they then proceeded to use the Mafuba to seal his powers away and threw it into the bottom of the ocean, guarded by some additional Kenium. And obviously, that seal got frozen in the iceberg from the first episode, and when Ken used his Chemical Z laser, he released the Kenium as well as the devil.
That'll be a 10 on the whoop scale.
Still, pretty interesting backstory and lore that backed up previous episodes that again we were reminded of with some very brief clips.
Again, this is the sort of recap episode that Precure should really model itself after, especially with this year's show, Delicious Party. Though, knowing that show, I'm willing to bet they'll just leave it in the hands of that narrator.
Back with the girls, they decide to check out an art exhibit featuring some poor imitations of great works. I mean, come on, we all know that the Mona Lisa should look more like a cute little anime girl. However, Yamo soon arrives, still looking for his sheep, and since he was a ghost, the girls' offenses had no effect on him. Though, other than scaring them, he likewise couldn't seem to hurt them. Still, after meeting the prof, they tried to get rid of him by having him recount his sheep, and in a clever bit, Momoko pulled a kind of Rika on him.
6時から大江戸戦隊サムライレンジャーがあるの
No. It's Samurai Sentai Shinkenger. Samurai Rangers would be more like...
But yeah, it resulted in him miscounting when extra sheep finally putting the lizard general to rest. However, there was still the matter of him, who reminded the girls of the mummy he had released, resulting in the longest clip of the episode, but hell, at least it had some of the best sakuga of the show, so why not show it off a little more? Anyway, him almost engaged the girls, but again, he was foiled by his inability to handle the cold. Still, the episode ended with him leaving quite the intimidating impression on the girls.
Well, I don't think a lot of us will ever truly be fans of recap episodes. I do think this is a great example of how it can be done right, in that it barely even felt like one. I mean, I would still count this as a recap, as at least a fifth of the episode were clips, but it was more in service for providing context to new scenes, in particular a lot of lore building. And while both fights with him weren't all that great, both were cut short due to weather, they are still building him up as a proper big bad for the series at least.
While recap episodes are often meant to be understandable relief periods for the animators, I also don't think they should ever be used as a crutch for lazy writing, which thankfully this episode avoided for the most part. The plot remained in almost constant motion, with previous episode clips mostly acting as just quick reminders. As a result, they managed to cram in a lot of backstory into just about 20 minutes. And sure, it's not the deepest lore, or even the most original story, just look at how many clips of Hiraga I was able to find. But it was still interesting to see the precursors to the modern PPGZ with some pretty cute designs and different takes on their weapons. All of it leading to a good explanation of how the events of the show originally started. And most of all, this remains one of the best alternate takes on a Powerpuff villain, with this version of him not only getting a lot of good build-up in spite of some underwhelming fights, but also just his delightful hamminess from sounding like an even more flamboyant Frieza. So overall, while this episode was likely meant to cut a few corners, when they cut them with such grace and effort, it makes for one of the better episodes of the entire series. The threat of him remains constant throughout the ages, as does his great evil laugh.
We're still working on a few other videos and trying to make sure we can get around the copyright bots, even though it is going to go on a secondary channel. But still, in between all that, we'll probably return to this soon. And at the same time, be sure to also check out the weekly pre-cure reviews on this channel now that that series is back, hopefully without any more issues, knock on wood. And until next time though, farewell for now my friends, and hey buddy, here's your 10th. Now go to sleep.